What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the Pathways to Success podcast. Today in studio, I have Brad Leali, and Brad is the professor of jazz saxophone at UNT and truly one of the most notable saxophonists of our current times. Brad, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Julian, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting my invite. And I wouldn't do this conversation justice if I didn't share just a few more of your accomplishments if I could, Brad. Okay. So you have toured with numerous jazz greats, including several years with the Harry Connick Jr. Orchestra and with the Count Basie Orchestra. Right. You've had numerous television appearances, including NBC Today, The Tonight Show, and BET.
Right.
You performed for President Obama's inaugural celebration, and you continue to perform domestically and abroad, including touring with Lyle Lovett and his large band.
I'm very blessed.
Man. So Brad, just to kind of like help our audience understand just a little bit more about your background and kind of what you do, like how did you first start off your musical journey? How did you get into this?
Well, Julian, I grew up in a musical family in the sense that we always had music going on in the house.
Yeah.
My father was a saxophone player when he was in high school. When I was born, he was not playing anymore. But I remember when I would go into the basement, I would always see his saxophone down there. I would always open up the case and say, oh man, that's a beautiful, beautiful horn. And I would look through his yearbooks, and back then, they were always dressed nice. See, we're casual today.
Yeah, totally.
He was, back then, they were always in their suits and ties, and I said, wow, my dad looks so sharp. He looks so good. And, you know, that's an image that still, you know, is still in my mind. But anyway, I would go and I would see the horn, and we'd always have music. My dad would be listening to Cannonball and Train and Miles and Dizzy and Bird, and my mother was listening to Sarah Vaughan and Nancy Wilson and Billie Holiday, and we had all these different types of music going on, gospel and R&B as well. So it was kind of just part of my world.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Baptist church, so if you're going to be in the Baptist church, you have to play something. Okay. You have to do something musical. So I was in the choir. And then, you know, one day I told my dad, I said, you know, I want to play saxophone. And that very day he took me to the store, we got the saxophone fixed, and signed me up for a band, the Denver Junior Police Band. Yeah, and so there you go.
And that's how it started. So I'm curious, like, how did you land on the saxophone versus any other instrument?
Well, that's the only instrument we had in the house.
Okay. And it stuck.
I wanted to play drums.
Yeah?
That's what I wanted to play. And my dad said he'd give me some drums. I'm still waiting for them.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but...
So I did not bring this up because it just sounds ridiculous to you, but I actually played saxophone from sixth grade through my senior year. I marched all 3 years. I made all region a couple times, but the reason why I say that is because I have like a true appreciation to meet someone who's a true master of their craft, right? So
just like I'm meeting you, right? Okay, I get it.
So let's kind of jump into things. You know, a big thing about what you're doing today is, of course, you are a professor of jazz saxophone at UNT.
Right.
And one of the things that you are passionate about discussing is your relationship with your students.
Right.
Start to kind of unpack that for us, if you would.
Well, you know, it's when I first started teaching, I really didn't understand some of the things that I do now.
Yeah.
So I was, okay, I have a curriculum. These are the things I'm supposed to teach, boom, boom, boom. However, it doesn't work that way. In my experience, it's very important to learn who your students are. Yeah. Just as individuals, not as musicians, but who they are, right? And once you learn who they are, then they start to trust you. And then, in my opinion, that's when the true teaching starts. Because if you're going to,
Interesting.
If you, in my opinion, if someone's going to give you information, if you're going to trust someone to give you information about something that you want to know,
Yeah.
you have to be able to trust them. If I'm going to buy a car, right, I have to trust the salesman that they're going to be honest with me and that they're going to tell the truth.
Right.
If I don't, the chances are I will not buy the car. I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm realizing now that it's important to learn who my students are, and therefore that relationship garners a lifetime. Not just the 4 years or the 2 years or the 6 years or the time that they're in school, but it encompasses a complete lifetime. So when my students have graduated, hey, Professor Leali, I'm coming through town. Can we go out, get some coffee or something?
Yeah.
Hey, are you on tour? Give me a call. You know, so it's more, you have that teacher-student relationship, but then it becomes friends and more of a partnership down the road.
Interesting. You mentioned trust as one of the core components to that effective relationship. Like, what are some of the things that you've done to really build that trust?
I try to be honest.
Yeah.
I think honesty is the best way. I think that I have to tell them, hey, this is right. In my opinion, this is wrong. If they need to work on something, I can't sugarcoat it. I can't say that, okay, you sound great, but you really don't sound great.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, when you're a parent, right? You want to teach your children right and wrong, meaning you can't always be their best friend, but they have the trust knowing that you love them unconditionally, right? So in dealing with the students, I felt that the best way or what helps them trust me is when I'm just honest.
Yeah.
If I say, you know what, I did the same thing when I was your age. I didn't practice every day. I made some bad grades. There were times when I didn't practice, as I said before. You know, I made some wrong decisions. I'm not perfect. However, I want to be better. I want to practice. I want to improve. So I think that if I show honesty to them, then they're like, okay, he's real.
So I'm curious as far as like the teaching piece, like what have you experienced in your teaching career to impart information and actually have your students take action and do something with it?
Let me make sure I understand that question once more. Ask that one more time.
Yeah, so as far as like when you're teaching a student something, you're typically giving them new information, but you're doing this for the intent of their benefit so they can do something with it. What have you seen in students between the difference between people who take action on that and the people that don't, I guess?
Well, you know, that's funny. That's a great question, actually. Sometimes you get it right. Like sometimes I will tell my students to do something and I get it right. It's what they need to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm wrong and they don't do it, or they try it. At least they try it, but they realize, no, this is not the right thing. Let me try something else. And so there's some times where both of us discover together that something works. We tried this, but it doesn't work. And sometimes they discover what works, and then they become a success at that.
Yeah.
And so I learned, I said, oh, wow, that didn't work. And I thought it would work, but this worked. So in that sense, they help me to learn. I help them to learn. And I think the ones that are curious and take my advice are able to discern what works and what doesn't work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I respect the fact that they at least are willing to try. I think the ones that are willing to try always seem to find success somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if this doesn't work, then we go, or they may discover something else, or together we may just discover different things to help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah. So this podcast is called The Pathways to Success, and I like to have experts on the podcast that understand and deconstruct kind of how they were able to achieve those results. You are truly world-class at your craft. I'm curious, what has it taken to sort of get to this point?
I have to keep going back to just honesty and being humble.
Yeah.
My mother taught me at a very young age. I was, I was a hot shot.
Yeah?
Hot shot saxophone player, maybe high school. And my mother said something to me that sticks to this day. She said, you know what? You sound really good, but let me tell you something. There's always someone better.
Yeah.
So when she said that, it kind of resonated within me, and as I said, it still does. So when I have that in mind, I know that I have to continue to practice. I have to continue to work. It doesn't matter really now if someone is better, because there's always going to be someone better.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at now is being the best that I can be. What is my voice? Who am I? Not only as a musician, as a person, as a man, as a father, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a friend. If I just continue to try to improve and be better, then I think that it's all relative. So that helps me to continue in my music and every aspect of my life.
I think it's a recurring thing that I'm hearing from this conversation is the importance of practice. And a lot of artists and people in sports, they understand the value of practice, but a lot of times, like in the corporate world, we don't think of our jobs like as practice, right? Getting better at a craft. So I'm curious, like, what role has practice made in the success of your career, and how do you go about doing it?
Well, practice, it's really not practice to me. It's like a way of life.
Okay.
I love to play. I actually love to do
That's
what
core.
I'm
You
doing.
love what you're doing, yeah.
And I know you did a podcast on that. Love your work.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. I'm a true believer.
Yeah. And so it's not work to me. It's not practice to me. That's
Interesting.
I can't even define that in terms of what I do.
Yeah.
I love to wake up and practice the horn.
Yeah.
I love to go out and sit in. I love to pull my horn out when I'm with my students. I have a little piano in my bedroom. I love to sit at the piano and just play and write. Sometimes before my son goes to sleep, I'll play while he's, sleeping. And, I just love it. So practice to me is a way of life. It's something that I love to do. So does that answer your question?
It does. It just feels like it's an expression of the thing that you love to do.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm curious, is there a way that you structure your practice to make very intentional improvements?
I record myself all of the time.
Yeah.
And so I listen and I see the things that worked and I see the things that didn't work. So the first thing that I do is I try to continue with the things that worked, and I look at the things that didn't work and I make sure I address them first and foremost when I practice.
Interesting. So you're actually listening for the things that you need to improve upon and then going after that.
Right.
Gotcha.
I feel that if I'm practicing and if I'm always sounding good, I'm not practicing. Or I'm not playing, right? Because I said I'm not practicing. But if I'm only playing the things, oh, Brad, you sound great, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
Oh, Brad, that doesn't really sound good. Next week, oh, that sounds a little better. The next week, oh, okay, I see what you're working on. So I try to target the areas, my weaknesses, and try to make them my strengths.
Yeah. So let's say that somebody's first starting out in their musical journey, and they're watching this, and you had like this opportunity to give them some type of wisdom or advice to become truly a master of their craft and world class at what they do. Like, what would you tell them?
I would say first, love it.
Yeah.
love it, love it. Let that be your motivation. That's my opinion. Because if you love something, it's just going to be constant.
It doesn't feel like work, right?
Yeah,
It's like you're in a state of flow.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. And if you don't love it, then be honest about it.
It might not be the thing
It
for
may
you.
not be the thing for you, and it
Yeah.
may be something for you.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe if you don't love it, maybe they would have to approach it differently. Maybe they would have to have a strict regimen. Like, I don't love to work out. You can see that right now. I used to. So I
Yeah.
have to say, okay, I have to do this. And I like it, but I don't love it. But I have to do this because, you know, it's to my benefit. So I guess, you know, speaking for those that may not love something, they may have to have some kind of motivating factor, self-motivation, what have you, that makes them do what they need to do to get better.
Gotcha. Okay. I know one thing that you are passionate about discussing is sort of finding this balance between learning in the classroom and also on the bandstand, and kind of like why we're on this topic of, you know, helping students become masters of the craft. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
I'll speak specifically for jazz music right now.
Sure. Yeah.
You can learn so much in the institution, but you cannot learn everything in the institution, in the academic institution.
Okay.
You can learn so much on the bandstand, but there's so much that you can't learn on the bandstand.
And for the non-musicians, the bandstand is what?
Oh, that's at a gig.
Okay.
At sitting in somewhere with other musicians, at a public performance,
Okay.
we'll say, at a performance of any kind. So my students that are in academia, I strongly persuade them to get out of school, stay in school. Let me make sure that we all understand this. Get wonderful grades, of course, but you have to get out in public and you have to perform in public.
Yeah.
You have to communicate with people. You have to see how people react or how they don't react to what you do.
Yeah.
That's extremely important. I feel that with music, it's communication. We're trying to communicate with everyone. When I'm playing, I want to communicate with you. You may not know what a harmonic major scale is, right?
No.
Or a harmonic minor, and you don't care.
Yeah.
You just want to feel something,
Yeah.
right? So I'm trying to teach my students that, okay, this academic thing is great,
Yeah.
but you have to get out there and you actually have to communicate with these people and learn how to communicate with people. Talk to your audience, see what's going on.
Yeah. 100%. So a few things that you mentioned, like, you know, whenever you get the feedback of like your audience in the corporate world, that's, you know, business feedback. How do you tailor your product so that the market accepts it? That kind of thing, right? So I'm curious, like, even when you invited me to speak, what you wanted me to talk about was like, how do you take what you've gone from the classroom and apply it into the real world, right? So I'm curious, you have obviously gone from being an artist to creating a business out of it, to creating an income, to becoming an actual professional working musician. What were some of those keys to go from classroom to the business world of music?
Well, like I say, first of all, I'll say it again, I just love it.
Yeah.
So when I was starting, when I was in school, I had no idea what I was going to do after school. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
All I knew is I wanted to be great at what I did. That's all I knew. And so I practiced all the time, as I said. And I didn't worry about anything because I always felt that if I'm good, if I'm really good, and if I'm good to people, then I'll be taken care of. I have just always felt that for some reason. And maybe my spiritual upbringing. But so I really didn't have a plan. In fact, I didn't even think I was going to college. There was a organ player that came through town that wanted to take me on the road when I was 17, and I told my mother, I'm going on the road. My mother said, no, you're not. You're going to school and you're going to get a music education degree.
Yeah.
I said, okay, right? So I got the degree, but I wasn't thinking about teaching. I just wanted to be great at what I did. And so then it seems like the universe just took care of everything.
Do you remember how you got that first paid gig? What was that?
Oh, well, my first paid gig was in high school.
Okay.
My first big gig
Yeah.
was with Harry Connick Jr.
How did that happen?
Well, that's a great story. Thank you for asking. And this goes back into, I think it's always important how you treat people.
Yeah.
Okay. I was at North Texas, and I had a good friend, right? He was a trumpet player, and he wasn't a great trumpet player, but he was a good person.
Yeah.
And he was a good trumpet player, right? So you know how you have cliques, right?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, well, we're the best, and we're only going to be with the best, and if they're not as good as we are, we're not going to, His name was Kevin. And so I just liked, Kevin wasn't in the elite crowd.
Yeah.
But I liked him. It didn't matter to me. We were good friends. We were just cool, right? And so Kevin ended up leaving. At some point, I guess he graduated. We all graduated. Well, I was still in school, but he left. And he was good friends with Harry Connick Jr. And this was before any of that, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so Harry Connick came through town and he had auditions for a saxophone spot. I did not audition because I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
This is how the Lord works too. And so, so they're gone. They're having auditions in other places. All of a sudden, I get back to my apartment one night. I was with my friend Deepak. We were going and we were jogging, and we get back to the apartment. This is when they had answering machines. And someone, Ben Wolf, who was Harry's bass player, musical director, said, hey, I got your name from Kevin. We're looking for a lead alto player in Harry Connick Jr.'s band. Would you please give me a call? And first of all, they had already been there, and
yeah.
I give Ben Wolf a call. He says, I want you to play Cherokee. I said, well, we were talking, and I said, well, I can send you a tape. I'll send you a tape. I have a little press kit, and I'll send it. He said, well, we don't have time for that. We're going to go on the road in the week. So I need you to play on the phone right now for me.
Wow.
So I played Cherokee for him, and I finished playing. He said, the gig is yours.
Wow, just like that,
yes.
huh?
So I graduated, I think, that next week, and the next day I was on the road.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
That's incredible. It's incredible. And and I think, it stems from my relationship with Kevin.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you've heard the expression, maybe your net worth is equal to your network, or you're like the people that you're around. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that absolutely makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. And then it kept going.
It kept going. Yeah.
Count Basie, and like the different platforms that you've been on, like NBC, The Tonight Show, and everything. Like, how did those start to come to be?
They were just all part of that. With Harry Connick Jr., we were on all of the, we were on TV. We were traveling the world.
Yeah.
And then, it's wow. Sometimes I don't sit and think about it, but when I do, it's kind of I always have to go to God.
Yeah.
I really do, because I feel that, damn. how else could all that happen? I mean, I know I practiced and I know that, but I'm certainly not in charge of my life in terms of everything. I just plant the seeds, I feel, and just trying to be the best that I can be. And then the paths open up, you know?
I love it. So what I'm hearing is you have to love what you do, and you have to find whatever it is that you love.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've got to work towards becoming great at it, and you've said being good to other people.
Yeah.
And then God, your faith, and things kind of start to kind of.
Yeah, it's, you know, and when I say that, I'm certainly not saying that I'm perfect, and I'm
sure.
So if this gets out here, I have certainly made my mistakes.
Yeah.
But I feel that is the core.
Yeah.
I feel that is the core. Yes.
So you have had an incredible career. So I'm curious, like, what were some of the big life or business lessons that you've learned that you could share with our audience as a result of everything that you've done, Brad?
I think that the greatest lessons that I have had are my failures.
Tell us about that.
Oh, well. I can't tell you all of those.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, like when I, for instance, when I first came to North Texas, I thought I was a big shot in Denver, Colorado. And at North Texas, we have 9 lab bands, right?
Yeah.
And so on my first audition, I was like, okay, I'm at least going to make the 2 o'clock without question.
Yeah.
My very first audition, I didn't even make a lab band.
Really?
I did not make anything. I made what you call, well, they put me in a reading band.
Yeah.
Which means you need to learn how to read. You need to get it all together. So that was a failure, and that motivated me to become better because I was seeing, I was seeing all these great players and where I really stood. And so that's one example.
And the thing that caused that was ego, would you say?
I would say so,
Yeah.
I thought that I was, And
Okay.
so that's a musical example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. I know one thing that you want to talk about also that's going to lead us to kind of the present days, the importance of preserving jazz. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, this was created here, right? And I think that what happens in history, right? History is lost. And I think some of that is inevitable, right? But I am a strong advocate for the history of jazz. I'm an advocate for learning and knowing about, you know, the unsung heroes, right? Thankfully, we had a Charlie Parker. Thankfully, we had a Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Lester Young, the list can go on, Louis Armstrong, right? But we also had a lot of unsung heroes that were extremely significant. You know, some of these people that no one will know about. Well, some people do, but like Billy Tolles, who was a great tenor player when I was growing up. Marshall Ivory from Texas, right? And I think it's extremely important that educators, not only educators, but enthusiasts for the music, pass this information on. You know, okay, we have the latest Downbeat magazine. We have the latest Jazz Times magazine, which has all of the great players that are out there now. And we applaud them all because they are great. However, we also need to be teaching and sharing the information of these other people who made it possible for us to even have a Downbeat magazine, right? Or even to be playing some of the songs or the styles that we have today. So I'm very, 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 very passionate about the history of this music. Yeah.
Gotcha. Brad, tell us about Gospel Meets Jazz.
Well, Gospel Meets Jazz is a project that I'm extremely enthusiastic about because that's how I grew up. I grew up in the Baptist church. So I think it's good to show people and to educate people on the roots of gospel music and how gospel music has influenced jazz music, right? It's very important to me not only in the musical aspect, but just as a concept, a concept of life, a concept of inclusion, a concept of just being good to people, feeling good, being positive, showing people that, okay, you have a platform for expression that can include everyone, and it can let everyone know that everyone is significant. Everyone is significant. And I think that gospel and jazz have that power, right? Because the music, the atmosphere, the philosophy is so uplifting, in my opinion. So yeah, that's very important to me. Yeah.
So Gospel Meets Jazz, the current iteration of what it is today, what is it?
Well, it's a project that I have where we're combining gospel choirs with jazz musicians, with and just putting it all together. You know, I have certain arrangements that are of jazz tunes that include gospel, and then I have gospel tunes that include jazz. And so that's what it is. It's a project that I'm really trying to get off the ground. I've been doing it for several years, I think about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I feel that I'm motivated now to really, really push that because I see the profound effect that it has on people.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I think that it's needed as well in these times. But yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm really trying to push that a bit more.
So what's the next step to move that forward?
Funding.
Okay. Gotcha.
To be honest,
sure, yeah.
Funding and just belief.
Yeah.
That this is something that is significant, this is something that is needed, and this is something that will have a powerful impact on our world.
Is there like a demo tape or like a YouTube clip or something like that to get an essence of what it is?
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Sure.
There are several YouTube clips
Okay.
On Gospel Meets Jazz, Brad, Leali, and you can find them right there.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you can also go to the UNT website. I think they have in their video archives, I think they have performances, past performances that I've done there. But certainly if not I don't know if everyone has access to that, but if they do, they can certainly find it there, but certainly on YouTube.
Gotcha, okay. And we'll make sure to copy and paste everything into the show notes as well. So.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
Well, Brad, this has been really incredible, man. Like, how can people connect with you, learn more about you, support the Gospel Meets Jazz project? Tell us all this, if you would.
Well, they can visit my website, bradleali.com. They can reach me at the university at brad.leali@unt.edu. That's my email address. And those are the best ways to do it.
Awesome.
And maybe they can contact you.
Maybe they can. Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm an advocate for sure. So Brad, I really enjoyed our time together. I really learned a lot of great things.
Thank you,
I
Julian.
admire your spirit, your passion, your dedication to your craft, and I'm really glad to know you, man.
Man, thank you for having me on the show. You're great, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Of course, thank you to Judy Watson, who created this
Judy.
Connection. Yeah, really appreciate that.
Judy is
as well.
fantastic.
She's incredible.
She's incredible.
And now is part of our live studio audience right now. So.
So
Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success podcast. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.